Warning: this episode contains strong language. Hello and welcome to episode 18 of PauseCast. It is the 3rd of November, 2016. I am Jessica Alouette and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. And I am the same person, just using a different microphone if I sound all weird and funky.
And I am the same person, just using a different microphone. We're going to sound drastically different this week.
Yeah, don't get confused between us. I know our voices are practically identical.
Oh yeah, totally. It's fine. But we got some new gear, and by that I mean I handed down my microphone to Mark.
Hand-me-downs are the best, thank you.
I picked up a new headset at Armageddon, which is a big kind of comics and gaming expo here in New Zealand. And so I've got that set up. It's really quite nice.
I tell you, I've never actually been to Armageddon. I hear about it every year.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah?
It was a lot smaller than I was expecting, but I think that's just because I built my expectations on like conventions I'd been to in like New York and stuff like that.
Of course.
So
is it your first
difference.
time that you've been to Armageddon then?
Yeah, this is my first time because I've only been in Auckland once while Armageddon was taking place.
Aside from this time?
Yeah, aside from this time.
Right. Okay,
Every other
fair
time
enough.
I was living further down south and couldn't like get up here.
Yeah.
So. But now I'm here. It's good. So, yeah. That's that, I guess. There's also not been an episode for a while because of audio fuck-ups or our fuck-ups or whatever. So, we're getting back onto a normal schedule. We promise. Holy shit. It's been a while. It's been a grip. Mark.
Yeah.
In that time, you and I have both had a lot of time to play some video games, I reckon.
More time than usual, yeah.
Yeah, because, there's been a while since we did the last recording. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you've been playing?
I haven't actually played anything since, I feel like I should say Sunday, but technically it was very early Monday morning because I finally finished Final Fantasy X. And I'm still processing that, so I haven't played anything since.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You've been playing Final Fantasy X for like upwards of a few years, isn't that right? Like
Sort
you
of,
haven't been
like,
playing this specific version, but you haven't had it finished.
I haven't been playing it continually that whole time, but it has been like a current story for me for a huge chunk of my life, so it's really weird to be done with it now. And I know there's Final Fantasy X too, but I haven't decided yet if I want to touch that. I don't really know much about it. I'm going to be pretty wary and see if I can find some friends who've played it who I'd trust to tell me if I should play it or not, or just if it's one of those sequels I should pretend doesn't exist. I don't know yet. But 10 has been around for a long time for me, and it's bizarre to have finished it now. Like, I'm glad I did it. Was finally prompted to do it because my flatmate went and finished it when I wasn't expecting him to. And I got home from work and he was like, hey, he'd been on leave that week. He's like, hey, I finished Final Fantasy X today. I was like, what? No, I was ahead of you. So I went and did it, and it went a little later than I thought. So I finished at about 2:30 in the morning, and then, of course, I couldn't sleep. So that Monday was fun. But yeah. I've had it as a current, like, in-progress story that I think about at least occasionally for probably upwards of a decade. And it's not like I played it once and then forgot about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you a bit of a timeline if that's all right.
Sure. Why don't we do that a little bit later if you can hold on to it?
Yeah, I can hold on to that. I'm not going to forget.
What else have you been playing? Because this is this is interesting and I want to talk about it more. But if I'm going to talk about this, I want to go deep.
So as well
what
as
else
that,
have you been playing?
It's November, so of course I've been playing XCOM 2. I started a new playthrough a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've been playing Little Big Planet 3 because my flatmate bought a PlayStation 4. What else have I been playing? More Monster Hunter because, of course. Um, those are the main ones. I don't think I've played anything else. I did open Skyrim Special Edition for like 1 minute, so I could link my account up and re-upload some tweaks that I put up like when it first came out.
Right, yeah.
Because I had like Steam notifications of comments, people like, is this going to be up on Special Edition? So fuck it, I did it. It was they hardly deserve to be called mods though. They literally change one number in the game, but I can't play it without it. It stops NPCs from telling you their life story when you pass them in the street. So you actually have to go a little close to them now before they do it.
I'm assuming that config is like the radius at which they start talking to
It's
you?
exactly it. And by default, it's 150 units. I changed it to 50 and found that worked pretty well.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, because I made this after initially I couldn't hear a story critical conversation because that girl who runs everyone Whiterun ran past me in the street and stopped to tell me that she works for her mother over the story critical conversation, which I couldn't hear because of it.
Oops.
So, and you can't tell them to shut up. They just keep going. So that's what prompted me to make that. What about you? What have you been playing?
Yeah, Skyrim Special Edition is the thing I opened up for about an hour to get through the intro sequence.
Yeah?
The difference between the two versions is it's kind of nuts.
Yeah?
Mostly because everything that they've done for Special Edition seems to be focused on two things, right? It seems to be focused on textures.
Mm-hmm. That's no surprise.
And, well, yeah, that's kind of a given. Textures and lighting. Because they brought they've brought Skyrim over to either just an upgraded version of Skyrim's engine, or they've just used the Fallout 4 engine as a baseline, which is the same thing, I know.
Well, it's a later version of it, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a later version, but I'm wondering if they just use that whole cloth. Or...
I know that there are some improvements on Fallout 4 as well that have made it into Skyrim.
Interesting.
Because one of those things is weirdly the thing I'm most excited about in the Special Edition, which is that water now flows a little more realistically. Instead of like all the water in this region flows in this direction, whatever's in the way doesn't matter. Now it'll actually flow around objects and stuff. I've seen GIFs of it, which I'm actually really stoked about. I think that's really cool. I also hope, but haven't checked, that they've fixed that weird, stupid thing they do with shadows, where they stay very still until suddenly they move a whole bunch, and they stay very still for a while again, because for shadows, time passes in fits and starts.
They didn't do that for Fallout 4, so I doubt.
I think they did do it in Fallout 4. It's just if you don't see it, it's hard to notice. But once you see it, you can't not. There is some INI file tweaks.
I'm pretty sure that it still goes hour to hour in Fallout 4.
What do you mean hour to hour?
Like when the shadows moved a whole bunch in Skyrim, that was because an hour had passed.
No, it was much more frequent than that. Yeah, there were a couple of numbers.
An hour of in-game time.
Yeah, no, I know. No, it wasn't that. There were a couple of configuration numbers in the INI file that you could tweak. It was much shorter than an in-game hour. But what was also funny, which I'm sure they won't have changed, is that so the shadows go one way during the day, and then they just go the other way at night to get back to where they started again, which doesn't make sense, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was also still in Fallout 4.
Yeah, I think it was.
But the lighting that they've put into Skyrim Special Edition really, really helps everything in that game's atmosphere.
Cool. So this is like that God Ray sort of stuff that they had really nice in Fallout 4 and things like that?
Yeah, things like that. And just the tone in general and how lighting reacts with various surfaces, it all feels a lot less flat.
Cool.
There's a lot more foliage.
Do they have more shadow casting lights now? Because I know that originally they had certain light sources marked as casting shadows, and then a lot of other ones wouldn't, because obviously it takes more processing power from the computer.
Yeah, I think they might, but don't quote me on that.
Sure.
Because I cannot confirm.
Yeah, that's fine.
It was a very pretty hour that I spent with it, though, and I'm excited to put a little bit more time into it.
Nice. I know that when I started it up, my it went auto-detecting settings. Your settings have been set to low. So I'm a little worried about how it'll go,
Really?
but I'll see. Yeah, I mean, my computer runs stuff fine, so I might just try bumping them up and seeing how it goes. It is a laptop,
I
though, and it's a couple of years old now.
When I booted it up, it was like detecting settings. Your settings have been set to ultra.
Nice. I know that sometimes, because it's a laptop, sometimes games just won't recognize the card, which is weird. Normally it only happens with older games when the card's newer than them, but possibly it's that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because mobile chips are significantly less powerful than their desktop
Yeah.
counterparts.
But like
So
if
if
I
they're not
started,
like specifically accounted for in the config, like you're not going to get your graphics card detected properly,
yeah.
even if it's powerful enough to run that.
I know, for example, if I start Morrowind or something, like an old game, it won't know what's going on. So if it tries to auto-detect, it'll be like, well, I've got no idea, so I'm just going to be safe and put everything on low.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's the case here or not, though. I haven't gone past the main menu. So.
Nah, it's basically just what I've said. It's going to be your graphics config, your graphics card not being detected properly by the game
Fingers crossed.
because it's a mobile chip. It'll
Yeah.
be fine. You played Fallout 4 like high settings, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what exactly it was. It wasn't
It's fine.
on the max on anything, on everything, but like I turned a whole bunch of stuff up from what it told me.
Cool. This week has also brought me a bunch more Overwatch.
Mhm.
I was actually looking at a screenshot from Overwatch, and how did I not realize there's a fucking moon colony? That's a thing, I guess. There's like a city structure up on the moon. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. I've been playing some Overwatch. I went back. I hopped in a time capsule as well. It was weird.
Yeah.
I hopped in this time capsule and it brought me out into the year 2009. And I mean that was a weird experience. A lot's
I mean,
changed
that
since then.
explains why you look like 7 years older than I saw you earlier this week.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm dealing with the side effects of like aging. I told some interesting stuff to my past self as well. I managed to find them and leave them notes. So, things are looking up. But I went back to the year 2009, and I found this game called Torchlight. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've played Torchlight and Torchlight 2.
Now, I haven't played the second. Well, okay. I have to take that back. I played the second one for a couple hours a few years back.
Okay.
And I did the same with Torchlight 1.
Mhm.
I played about 2 hours of it a few years back.
Mhm.
And this week I decided to kind of jump in to Torchlight 1. And I don't normally play this type of game. It's a kind of click-heavy action fantasy thing. If you've played Diablo, it's very similar to a Diablo game. Point at enemies, click on them a lot, and they die. It's, as Mark has described on the show previously, I believe, a digital pinata.
Yeah. They're all about the loot.
Exactly. There's loot, and you hit things until loot comes out, and you watch
Exactly.
some numbers go up, and there's some fancy spells and animations and stuff. So I've been enjoying that a heck of a lot.
Nice.
I've actually started streaming that.
Yeah?
Yep, I'm trying it for a month just to
Oh.
see how I like it. Doing a weekly stream of Torchlight on my Twitch channel, and I'll talk about that kind of at the end of the show
Okay.
when we talk about where we can find each other on the internet.
Mhm.
But that's a thing that I've started doing, and I've just really been enjoying this.
Nice.
I can't quite place my finger on what I enjoy so much about Torchlight, though. But
Because it's not your sort of game normally.
yeah, I think that's it. Like, I don't know what I am finding so deeply enjoyable or why I have decided to pick it up now, but I have done it and I am enjoying it. So, we're going to see how that goes.
I mean, some mysteries just remain mysteries. I have no idea why November is XCOM season for me, but it is. It consistently is. So
Fair enough.
may never figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's like the fact that like just hitting stuff and feeling powerful is satisfying. I don't
But
know. Like games are very good at this power fantasy thing.
in
I think
these
we've
these
been
games
over
in
this.
particular, they're good at not having bullet spongy things. Like you typically kill a lot of enemies pretty quick, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like you could be surrounded by skeletons 1 second and about 5 seconds later they're all gone.
Mm.
It feels a lot more like you are doing a lot more damage, I guess, than something like your Skyrim or something where you have like a few enemies. Let's say you have a few enemies in a room, just like 3 or 4 or whatever, and they all come at you, but it takes you a couple minutes to get rid of them all.
Mm. Or in my case, it takes me 15 seconds to die.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways that situation goes.
Yep, either I die or I run away.
Where in something like Torchlight, you could have literally a dozen or more enemies around you and dispose of them all within a few seconds using some well-timed abilities.
Yeah, I mean, playing Diablo 3, which is similar in that respect, you get insane amounts of power relative to how you were early in the game once you're right at the end. Some special item combinations will just like, okay, now you do basically 100 times as much damage. So you, in that case, your only real choice is to bump the difficulty up a whole bunch. And Diablo 3 will have the numbers pop up saying how much damage you do. And it's got quite a nice thing where if you do an unusually large amount of damage, like it's a critical hit or whatever, it'll come up in orange to like highlight it, so you can be like, oh, I just did 60 million damage. I've never done that much before or something.
Yeah.
Reinforces
Borderlands
that.
highlighted that with like a big, huge red critical thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. And that was really
So-
satisfying because criticals weren't chance based. It was, hey, you did a good thing because you like
Exactly,
shot the
yeah.
robot in the light or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And Borderlands also did this fun thing once you got up to doing hundreds of thousands in damage, is that it just like shortened the amount of damage that you were doing into like 105k.
Yeah,
damage.
Diablo does that as well. Although I think it sometimes will keep the thousands on in some cases. Like I don't think it goes into billions. I think it's like, no, this should feel big. If you can do 1,000 million damage, I don't know if you can. It'll probably say
I
that.
don't know. I mean, like you probably could in Borderlands. I mean, it goes up to some pretty ridiculous levels,
Mm.
Like once you start doing your True Vault Hunter and Ultimate Vault Hunter runs.
Are those New
Then-
Game Plus type things?
Yeah, those are the new game plus types. You have
Right.
True Vault Hunter, which is you can start doing that at around level 30 plus, I think it is. That's typically when you finish Borderlands 2's main story around
Okay, that's
level
what I was going to
30.
ask.
And then Ultimate Vault Hunter is kind of level 60 plus.
Right. So is that third playthrough material?
Yeah, that's third playthrough.
Okay.
But the level cap in Borderlands is level 70.
Mm-hmm.
So once you hit that, then like that's it, kind of. Whereas something like Bloodborne,
Mm-hmm.
you can just keep going and going and going, and there's not really a level cap.
Oh, I don't think I realized Bloodborne has levels.
It has like, I think I've talked about this a little bit on the show. If I haven't, Bloodborne kind of has two main ways of progression, and Souls has this as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have your soul level, as it's kind of colloquially referred to, and your soul level indicates like how many points you've put into strength, skill, arcane, blood tinge, etc., in Bloodborne. These are like your actual stats.
Right.
And then you actually have gear levels, much like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, yeah. In Monster Hunter, that's until the last game, that was all you had.
Yeah. And And in Monster Hunter and Dark Souls alike, you can just upgrade your weapons. So you start getting more and more experience on that. So you can have like a +3 sword or a +2 piece of armor by just tempering that, and that actually gives you a lot bigger stat increases than most of the soul level stuff that you have does. Yep. So it's such a it's a small component of playing Dark Souls or playing Bloodborne.
This is sounding kind of familiar, similar to Diablo 3, where you level up and get more powerful as you do it, but it stops quite early. It stops at level 70 again, but it doesn't actually take that long to get there. And then from there, you get very small incremental increases from experience, but for the most part, it is find better gear.
Yeah. A lot of that seems to be the system with a lot of games. Like it seems to be kind of gear focused in this like style.
I actually noticed that with 10 as well, which I'll get into a bit later, where near the end of the game, focus, right near the end of the game, at least for me, focus became more on equipment than on levels.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately a more useful system, too. Part of me is like, okay, a system based entirely on experience points that you're just constantly gaining, right? Like, that's cool because you always feel like you're making progress. But it kind of stops, I don't know, it feels like it might stop being interesting after a bit, where finding a new piece of gear and bringing that number up always feels interesting. And there always seems to be something to go towards.
Yeah, I'm going to bring 10 into this because
okay, let's start on Final Fantasy X.
I think it's got a really nice way of dealing with equipment, where no piece of equipment. So you've got two types of equipment basically: a weapon and a piece of armor. Well, sort of like more of an accessory, really. And each character has their own set. You can't equip one person's weapon on another person. Same for the accessories, but they don't have stats. They have what's a good way to describe
abilities.
Abilities.
Like so, they have little buffs per weapon.
Yeah, so like
one might give you like +3 or 4 strength
or
whatever. No.
Or actually, no, sorry, you're right. There are some that will give you like +3% strength.
Yeah.
But others, there's like, this weapon has Ice Strike or Sleep Touch or something, and this weapon might have Dark Ward, which makes it hard if you get the Dark status.
Right.
And then later in the game, it opens up, okay, now all those weapons you've been seeing that have empty slots for these traits, you can now fill them up by expending items. So once you get right near the end of the game, you start thinking, I'm going to try to build the ultimate weapon for this character or the ultimate accessory or something. Which was kind of interesting. 10 also has this thing that kind of undermines that a bit, where every character has an ultimate weapon, which you're not going to make one better than that, because among other things, it lets them break the damage limit. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to get another weapon that lets them do more damage than that. But in order to get those weapons, you've got to do 3 things. You have to find the weapon, which is pretty straightforward in most cases, if you know how to do it, because these things are all obscure as hell and you'll pretty much need a guide, which I have problems with because it's the only thing in the game that I really feel like you'd need a guide to figure out. But that aside, you find the weapon, you need to find a special item. These are usually pretty easy to find if you know where to look for them, except in the International Edition, they added a whole bunch of Uber bosses, which, unless you play like 500 hours of this game, I don't think you have any chance in hell of beating, because they will kill everyone before you get a chance to do anything.
Right.
And a couple of these special items you need to get for the final weapons, if you don't get them when you're first in this area, when you go back to that area, there's an Uber boss there waiting for you, so you can't get the item anymore. That happened to me for one of the ultimate weapon items. Eesh. Real pain. And then you also need to do some sort of trial to get a third item, and then they're all combined. After you've done a bunch of extra stuff you'll probably need a guide for, then you can combine them into the weapon. And that trial, some of them are like pretty easy and straightforward. You can probably do it in like an hour. And then some of them, no, I'm not going to try, because like one of them is dodge lightning 200 times in a row in this area where you can press the enter button to dodge lightning after you see a flash, and it's tough to do it like 3 times in a row. 200 times is ridiculous. Whereas other ones is like, oh, capture a bunch of monsters. Like, it's not that hard. I did it in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, I'm almost back.
okay.
You'd have to log in first, hon. You were good? Yeah. Yes, you do. Sorry. I'm just helping Autumn get the PS4 set up with the headphones.
No worries.
All right.
Okay.
So,
sorry, that was a lot of background on these final weapons. But they're very powerful. Since I had just over half of them, they actually made it really easy to finish the game without needing to do any power leveling. And it's annoying because I really like the system for equipment, but I felt that the final weapons, the ones I could get at least, undermined it a little bit, because then there was no incentive to try to get better ones. But that said, it was really satisfying to get each character's final weapon when I did. But for one where I couldn't get it, also felt really satisfying to build a really good one that had, what was it? I think this was for the character that casts damaging magic most. I gave her a weapon that had magic boost, which doubles MP use but makes spells much more powerful. And then I got another attribute on it that was all spells cost 1 MP.
right.
So everything cost 2 MP and was vastly more powerful. And finding combinations like that when you can customize the weapons was really satisfying. Another one, I picked up an accessory for one character that made them healed by 3 out of the 4 elements. And it had an empty slot. So of course, I made them healed by all 4 elements. And yeah, that worked out quite well.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's a really interesting way of dealing with equipment. And the reason why I think I like it so much is none of your equipment gets outmoded as you outlevel it. Like, it's not like in Skyrim where you throw away your iron sword because you've got a steel one now.
Right.
Like, the second weapon that the narrator character gets in the game stays one of their most powerful weapons throughout the whole thing. Like, you can use it at the end and it's still a very effective weapon. And that lets you draw and build some attachment to them. And I think that's really nice to let characters have an iconic weapon that sticks with them. And I don't know, it's interesting how some Final Fantasy games are really awful at this. Like Final Fantasy VII, everyone associates the character Cloud with the Buster Sword, but you stop using it really early in the game as soon as you get another sword, because it's the worst sword in the game that he can use, right? So it's really nice to see weapons stay around because they don't have 15 attack and you later have one with 700 attack. It's, this one does water damage and lets you see an enemy's health, and this one can pierce their armor and gives them the dark status effect or whatever. I really liked it.
And it's cool that Souls does something kind of similar too.
Yeah.
In that, no piece of gear really sucks in Dark Souls or Bloodborne. I mean, the exception of the wooden shield in Bloodborne.
Okay.
Because that's there as a joke.
Right.
You're not actually supposed to use shields at all in Bloodborne. It's the one shield in the game. It's a joke.
Okay.
That's the only piece of gear that I can think of in a Souls game that is particularly like, well, this sucks. Everything else is kind of at the same base level. So anything you want to kind of keep around, you can invest some time into.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, boost it up. So even if you find a cool new weapon in the late game, you can boost that up and still be able to compete because no weapon really sucks. It might mean that you have to do a little bit of backtracking to bring it up to speed, and that's fine. It's not undoable, but it might be a little bit more than some people are willing to dedicate to that. On the other hand of that, but I think that it's a cool system, not requiring that we don't require that the player constantly be upgrading because it has a bigger number.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about this, Monster Hunter kind of has an in between where the same weapons often stay around, but that's because you're upgrading them to give them those bigger numbers. But
Yeah,
still, it looks the same, particularly in the last one where you actually level them up instead of having always an upgrade path, like it's always a different name. Now you actually level it up, and it
right.
stays the same weapon until you choose to transform it somehow. Um, but that's quite nice, yeah. Where you can say I've been using this sword since day one or whatever, and it's just much more powerful now. It's particularly nice in games you spend a lot of time in, like this. For 10, I mean, I was by no means rushing it, particularly at the end since I went and got all the secret summons, which aren't that hard to get, and then a bunch of the final weapons, which are fucking obscure and silly. And Steam's telling me I've played 48 hours, which I'm happy with.
Hmm.
But with that, it's really nice to have the same weapons around. The sword I was talking about, the main character has, um, it's in the opening sequence as well. Like before you see any of the characters, you see three of the main party, three of the first characters that are introduced. All the weapons are in a stand, and that's like setting up the scene a bit. And the sword's pretty recognizable.
Hmm.
And you don't see it again for a little while until it gets introduced in the game. But it's really nice to have it stick around like that. And I think a lot of games that allow you to change equipment miss out on that.
Neat. I think that something that is interesting on the other side of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the very it's very satisfying to just watch those numbers to go up, but you're like constantly changing gear.
Oh yeah, when I'm playing Diablo 3, I will toss stuff away. Nothing's precious to me there.
Oh no, I'm talking about something like a Destiny though.
Okay.
Um Destiny and the Division as well both have
Mm-hmm.
kind of similar systems where if you're done with a weapon, you can dismantle it into crafting parts.
That's like the ultimate fuck you to their weapon.
Yeah, kind of. Like it makes it so that as you're progressing, you're constantly getting stuff, so you can make better weapons from pieces
Mm.
of various other weapons. But it is kind of like you're right. It is kind of like a fuck you to that weapon that you spent X amount of time with.
But I
But there's
mean,
always like a
different games,
constant sense of progress with that
yeah,
at the same time.
and different games have different feelings as well. Like Final Fantasy X is absolutely a narrative-driven game where a lot of the enjoyment out of it comes from forming some sort of connection with the characters, right? Like you like them and you want them to succeed. And so
Yeah,
having weapons that stick around that become iconic to them helps with that. Whereas in games like Destiny or The Division, it's not quite like that. It's anything special about your character is probably stuff that you've made up as like in your head fan fiction, I'm guessing.
yeah,
Rather than this weapon is particularly important to them in the story, it's no, I'm making stuff up on the side, which is a really nice part of games, surprisingly, given part of them is sort of not having to imagine stuff. But
yeah.
I always like adding that imagination stuff to games where they're lacking narrative components. It can be really nice to have gaps to fill in, just as it can be really nice to have a game do some fantastic narrative work.
Yeah. I think I prefer the latter. Just the fantastic narrative work. I'll take that
Yeah,
over most things in
definitely,
games.
but yeah, I absolutely agree. But also, it takes less. I don't know what I wouldn't say effort, but that's not quite the right word. To play those games, I think you have to be, or at least I have to be, in the right headspace to deal with a narrative game, to pay attention to it, and to sit down with it and enjoy it. That's part of the reason why I put off finishing 10 for so long. Although, admittedly, part of it is I just did not want it to end. Because, like you said earlier, it's been ongoing for a long time for me.
Definitely.
It still feels really strange. Honestly, it feels like I've lost something, but I am satisfied that I've finished it.
I think that you're right to say that it does require a little bit less kind of effort of you to play games where the narrative is kind of baked in for you and you don't really have to do a lot of you don't really have to engage with it beyond that surface level narrative if you don't want to. Where games that don't really have a ton of narrative given to you typically require a little bit more effort to appreciate the narrative. And I actually I want to bring something a little bit. I can bring an interesting example up that you may not have expected.
Mm-hmm.
Doom.
You know, for some reason, I thought you were going to say Doom.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but go on.
Okay, I'm a little bit predictable, I guess.
No, I don't know. It just popped into my head. Maybe I'm psychic. Probably not.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Doom is real interesting because it's as much or as little story as you want to get out of it.
Right.
Doom, and I'm gonna also bring up Dead Space here.
Yeah.
There seems to be a trend of like ultra violent games here. But Doom and Dead Space both don't have like a ton of narrative baked in. Doom is particularly kind of bare bones. There's like some vague implications of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also like really, really deep lore written not far away. And in Dead Space's case, there's a lot of really, really deep lore buried in the audio logs and stuff, and you can piece together the story a lot more like that. And there's still a fair bit of imagining that you have to do, more so with Dead Space than Doom, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot more imagining that you have to do to put all these bits of story together.
Right.
But it's a very satisfying thing to do, especially when you're kind of gleaning a lot of the story from the environments and from the things like in the environments, implications of stuff that happened. I think it's a really fascinating way of telling a story, but it definitely requires a ton more effort than just playing a narrative game. And you can totally ignore all this narrative if you want to and just play the straight video game.
I mean, that sounds a little bit like Diablo 3 again. When I first played through it, I stopped and paid attention to the story. When I play through it now, I skip every bit of dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter anymore.
Because you've been there. You've done that. The story doesn't
I've been
change.
there, I've done that, and I'm not playing it for that anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas for a game like Final Fantasy X, I don't think I could play it and try to ignore the narrative. I think it would be very mundane if I tried to do that, very boring.
Yeah,
It's about the narrative.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
the
think
main
that
thing.
you could successfully get away with that, even.
You can a bit near the end, just because there's kind of a gap in the narrative where it says, okay, now you can choose your path a bit more, and there's some like secret stuff you can try to do for like the ultimate weapons and the bonus the like super hard dungeon and stuff.
Right, yeah.
But you'd have to get to that point first, which takes 30-40 hours. But yeah, it feels really weird to be done with it now, because this is a game that came out in 2001, 15 years ago, and there was no way I could play it then. It was out on PS2, right at the start of the PS2 era, sort of, and I didn't have one, but I actually saw it as a trailer in the theater. Like the opening sequence, the opening cinematic for Final Fantasy X was a movie trailer as well. Like it was shown as a movie trailer and then revealed at the end, oh no, it's a game. Which as what I would have been 12, as a 12-year-old boy, I was incredibly excited about. And then it was sort of churning somewhere far away in the back of my head for several years, until we had a friend come and stay with us who had a PS2, and along with this PS2, he had the video game Final Fantasy X. I didn't put two and two together until I was partway into it, and this opening cinematic shot, I'm like, oh my god, I've finally started playing this. And I think I did the first 8 hours or something before they eventually stopped staying with us. And I loved it so much. And then again, for years, it was sitting there in the back of my head, not really coming to the surface all that much, but never going away, until I bought a PS2 many years later. Like this is well after the PS3 had come out, and found myself a copy of Final Fantasy X, sat down and played it, and got up to the final dungeon before my cat vomited in the PS2. At which point it didn't work anymore. And then
Which is a terribly pleasant story to tell, I'm sure.
Yeah. but then it wasn't until the HD remake came out on PC um, that I got a chance to play it again, which is this playthrough now that I've just finished. So it's been in my mind as an unfinished story for, like I said, probably over a decade now, and it's a game I played a lot when I was at uni, and I thought about a lot while I was at uni. So it's really weird to have gotten past the point I was at and having now concluded it. So yeah, every time since then I've gone to pick up a game, I just sort of stopped and sat and thought a bit again about Final Fantasy X and not really been able to do it. So I haven't played any games since then. Instead, I've been doing something a bit more passive and rewatching some more of Legend of Korra, which is a fantastic TV show. But because it's a TV show, I can just sit and watch it. It's a bit easier to do.
I want to take this moment to recommend that anybody and everybody watch Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. Both of them are incredible series. Do
Absolutely.
not watch The Last Airbender, M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
What?
M. Night, whatever the fuck. Don't watch his movie.
There's a movie?
There's a movie called The Last Airbender. Don't watch it. It's bad.
Oh, why would they do that? Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's live action. It's heartbreakingly
Seriously?
bad. Yeah, it's heartbreakingly bad. Apparently, uses like nightmare CGI and like it was not the movie that series deserved. And I'm so sorry for bringing up the fact that it exists.
Oh, it's alright. I watched the Dragon Ball Z live action movie.
I'm sorry for you.
Yep.
I feel real bad for you.
So do I. But yeah, no, the cartoons, they're both amazing. I've rewatched The Last Airbender recently. I wish I had a little more time in between them because a lot of time passes in Worlds. So it'd be nice if I left it a little longer, but I didn't. And now that I'm in Korra, I'm going through it. They're both very good. And just the nice thing about TV shows is it's more passive. So I don't need to worry as much, but I can just sit down and let it play rather than having to sit down and actively do something, you know? So it's been a bit easier for me to do since I've still got that settling in my head.
Yeah. I assume eventually you're just going to go back to XCOM.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I haven't finished my playthrough yet, and I haven't experienced all of the new DLC yet, although I have, I think, seen the bulk of it. But I mean, I'm enjoying this playthrough. It's always interesting with having new soldiers come up and you make new stories about them. Even though the main narrative is the same, the narratives you make up about these little people that you move around on the board, essentially, is different. And that's what I find is much more memorable and enjoyable about these games. And I really like tactics games, like a lot. I've ordered Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2 because I found it's a DS game and I own a 3DS, so that's going to be fun when it arrives in probably a couple of weeks.
Definitely. Also, I'm just looking at the Steam library page for XCOM 2 right now, and I just noticed that there's a voice pack for Cassandra Pentagast from Dragon Age Inquisition, and I just installed that. I've not booted up XCOM 2.
I haven't used any of them, but there are a lot of asset packs like that. Some people, I don't know if it's one person or one group or a bunch, but pretty much all of the main characters from the Mass Effect franchise have got both voice packs and actual visual asset packs for XCOM 2.
I am looking at that right now, actually. It is, let me just see if it's one person or not. 1 second.
But if you remember...
It's one person. One person is making all of these beautiful mods. There's a Liara to Sony one.
Do you remember several episodes ago when we were talking about our dream mashups? And I said XCOM and Mass Effect.
Yeah.
So it's part way there. I mean, of course, it's not with the story and the weapons and the settings and the enemies, but hell, it's cool to do that.
I'm liking the fact that there's voice packs for some of them too.
I mean, because there's so many just generic in combat voice assets in the Mass Effect games, right? When you will tell them go here or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised they can pull from it, but I think it's really cool. And also, I'm glad that it's not the sort of thing that's been shut down immediately.
Well, that's on Valve because Valve doesn't know how to do curation. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Also, like, I imagine if BioWare didn't like it, they'd have done something about it by now.
I
'Cause
I
surely
don't
they'd
know if they would have, is the thing.
Okay.
But, you know,
I like to think that BioWare just would be happy with it and wouldn't do anything about it. So that's my headcanon right now.
that's fair enough. I'm going to be excited to have Cassandra Pentacast in the video game. It's going to be very good. Because I like her very much.
I didn't play enough of Inquisition to really get to know her. I have to return to that game one day.
Part of me wants to get mad about Dragon Age Inquisition right now, but I am going to leave it. Like, there's some shit in that game.
Narrative stuff or
yeah,
or
like a
design
lot
stuff?
of narrative stuff.
Okay.
Like I'll mention one thing, I guess. Like
Okay.
BioWare, we get it. You really, really hate mages. You really, really hate one of the only you really hate this group of people that you designed clearly to represent minorities. We get it. You really hate them to the point at which you created a comic series called Mage Killer. Fuck off. That's my BioWare criticism. I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm upset about how BioWare has chosen to represent the mages. I think it's bad. I think it is a disservice to the worlds that BioWare has created in Dragon Age, especially considering the mages are designed to be a minority stand-in. Anyway, we're gonna move swiftly on from that, I think.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of silence from you, and I can only assume that means I need to swiftly move on.
I'm just letting you talk about it.
Oh, that's fair. One of the other things I've been playing this week, this is completely random.
Sure.
And unrelated to that, I have returned to Grand Theft Auto 5 because apparently I hate myself.
Yeah, I thought you hated that game.
I do. That's the thing. I have like a love-hate relationship with Grand Theft Auto 5. And unfortunately, like, it does turn to more hate once I get into like how the online component is designed. It's very bad. How a lot of the satire is very, very lazy. It's very bad. How a lot of the writing is very, very lazy. It's just, there's a lot of stuff in there that I do not like. There's a lot of stuff that I do like. So I've returned to it again to see if I can find more stuff that I'm going to enjoy.
Okay.
I've discovered one of its secret best features in the meantime.
The dolphin dive?
Sorry?
Jump, then punch.
Okay, I'm going to have to try that.
Yep. You can report back next week.
Okay, I will report back on dolphin diving in
I don't think
Grand Theft Auto 5.
it doesn't work in multiplayer. I
That's
hope
fine.
it still works in single player, but just jump, then punch.
Okay.
Do it at something.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
so
what I play Grand Theft Auto 5 for when I play it.
dolphin diving?
Yeah.
I play it mostly because it's got like, I feel like it's got a good flow to it. Like, they've clearly designed a lot of, like, this world that Grand Theft Auto 5 is set in is really beautiful. It's fun to go for a walk in and just like go from place to place and do it real slow. Kind of just take sights in.
They've got a first-person mod for it in PC, don't they? Or is that Grand Theft Auto 4 I'm thinking of?
No, it's not even a mod. It's official support.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about it.
The current generation versions of Grand Theft Auto 5 all just have like a first-person mode.
Because I always find that worlds look different in first-person, right?
Radically.
So that must be really cool.
I actually don't use the first-person a lot.
No? I feel like walking around will be good.
Yeah. It's actually, I prefer the like character view when I'm walking around. I just keep it real close to the character.
Right. I can definitely imagine over the shoulder being much easier for actual skill-based gameplay. But
Yeah.
in terms of just taking in the world, first person seems like the way to go for me.
Um. Yeah. I don't know. I really appreciate that over the shoulder view for just kind of roaming around in the world. I think it really works.
I wonder what dolphin diving is like in first person.
I wonder if you can even do it. Is the thing. I doubt it.
I hope you can.
Uh, I don't know. I haven't tried it, so I can report back on if it works.
Is it on PC that you have it? Or
Yeah, I've got it
PS4?
on PC.
PC. Okay. Hope it works. I really hope it works.
Even if it doesn't, oh well.
Yeah.
Do you ever since I've mentioned walking around and looking at stuff, do you ever find yourself doing that in kind of open world games?
It's literally all I do in Skyrim. I
Just
will
walk around and look at things?
I literally walk from one city to the other in first person.
Right.
I've mentioned before I would be the most boring Skyrim player to watch. But yeah, totally. I absolutely do.
I really enjoy going for walks in kind of the urban environments that some games have got set up. I'll use Mafia 3 as an example. That game has a lot of driving in it. But one day I was like, well, the objective's over in the next district. I'll just go for a walk over there. It's not a lot of effort to do that.
Yeah.
And I can look around, and it was nighttime. I found a few parks that I got to kind of just go wander through. Everything's all beautifully lit up. It's a cool way to be able to appreciate the environments that have been set up. I don't know. I find that it's also a little bit easier to do that in third person. In first person, I tend to have this temptation to just try to move as quickly as possible without looking at stuff really, which I imagine is I imagine that's because I've played a lot of Call of Duty and stuff like that. These are very fast games where you have to move fast.
This reminds me of something that I get really annoyed when video games don't have it, is the ability to walk easily. Because in games they have you run, right?
Yep.
In 10 you have to hold a button to walk. Since Skyrim, Bethesda has done it terribly because there's auto run that you can turn off, but every time you start the game up, it's turned back on by default. They used to have it off by default. And I don't know if you can turn it off by default now. You can turn it off when you load, but then you have to press caps lock. So your caps lock key is on, so I have to press caps lock and then somehow disable the controls by opening the console or alt tabbing out or something, and then turn it off again because I can't deal with caps lock being on unnecessarily. Actually, no, not since Skyrim. Since Fallout 3, actually, they've had this wrong, I think.
Yeah,
Oblivion had it right.
I appreciate games when I'm on mouse and keyboard and have to play on mouse and keyboard. I appreciate games that just add a quick little toggle somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah. It's
Please,
tough
just,
as well
let me toggle walk.
It's tough as well with consoles because it might be, and I remember this was the case for PS2 Final Fantasy X. You had to push the analog stick within this really narrow band of enough to move but not enough to run, and that was the only way you could walk.
Yeah.
So it was a real pain when you wanted to walk, because sometimes not when you're getting from A to B, but when you're just in a small area or something, and it's a game that's narrative based, you're trying to take it a little bit seriously, you don't want to run smack into the wall because it looks silly and takes you out of it a bit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would try to walk around with every opportunity. Grand Theft Auto 5 makes it really easy because they just they have you walk by default. Are you okay? A thumbs up. But yeah, you can push the stick all the way forward, and you're still walking.
That's
And
right, because you got the run trigger thing, right?
You press A a bunch, which is fucking annoying.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
That's another thing that irritates me about Grand Theft Auto 5. It's how bad the control scheme is. It's terrible. It is the most non-standard control scheme in a video game ever conceived. It deviates from basically every known design convention. It still manages to play pretty well, but it deviates from basically everything.
I remember it being fine. The running thing's kind of weird, but aside from that,
the handbrake is bound to RB instead of X. shooting from your vehicle is a nightmare. You may as well just give up.
Oh, I don't. The only way I shoot from my vehicle is when I'm unarmed. I think you know what that does.
No?
You should try that one too. Put your gun away and then shoot while you're in a car.
How does...
Just try it.
Okay.
It's great.
You might have to demonstrate this for me at one point, like find a video or something.
Just like press square, is it, I think, to change your weapon until you've got a fist, and then hold the shoot button.
Oh, do you just like hit the wheel a bunch, don't you?
Nope.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want to find out?
Yes, please just tell me.
You pull the finger out the window.
Oh, okay.
In the direction the camera's facing, so you can like do it behind you or in front of you or whatever.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm excited for? Watch Dogs 2 is going to let me hop up on top of cars and drive the car remotely and give pedestrians the middle finger as I drive down the street.
This is kind of like a Just Cause game.
Game of the year. You can pet dogs. You can actually like pet the dogs in this one. You can't do that in the original. Open world games are just getting so much more detailed. I'm so glad that we can pet animals.
It's pretty good. If you got to walk around, it's nice to have stuff to do while you're doing it.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 4 actually was a fun example of this. Because in the various like bars, there were like parrots occasionally.
Oh,
because of course it's pirates. But you could pet the parrots. And you can pet the dogs, and you can pet the cats, and you can just pet everything in Assassin's Creed 4. It's amazing. Video games have come so far.
The petting incident in Assassin's Creed 1?
No, but now you need to.
You know how there was the circle for your like non-weapon arm where you just like push people away gently? Mm-hmm. I think my brother was playing it, and we got to the point where there was someone in front, and the character just stopped because the person was right in front. I wasn't going to go around or whatever. So he pressed the move them out of the way button, and so the hand went up, and it made a like soft slapping noise as it settled on their chest, and then stayed there, and the person didn't move, and the hand just stayed there, and both the characters were just standing there with one of them with the hand on the stranger's chest, kind of looking not at each other. It was the best. We couldn't stop laughing for ages.
Jesus
sitting there watching
Christ.
it.
All right, I think that's going to actually do it for us this week. Mark, what are you looking forward to playing this week?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know when I'm going to feel up to playing stuff again, because 10 is still settling. Like, when it's been going that long, it takes a while. I'm definitely watching some more Korra. When I pick a game up again, it's probably going to be XCOM 2. Mm-hmm. Just because that's the one that I've got a current playthrough as well. I have at some point, I'm going to start up Skyrim again to play the DLCs, but I think that might be a summer thing that I do while I'm on break from work. What about you?
I think this week I'm going to be playing a little bit of Torchlight. Mm-hmm. That's going to be continuing on. I'm getting weird urges to play Dying Light, but I need to resist it. I need to.
Why? I've got it as well. We can play together.
So that's even more reason that I need to. Because I have other games to play through, but I would definitely enjoy playing co-op Dying Light with you.
I played a bunch of it with a couple of uni friends when I first played through it. It's a lot of fun co-op.
Also, a lot of fun co-op is, I imagine, Torchlight 2, which we should play co-op.
Oh, have you got Torchlight 2 as well?
Yeah, I have them both. I bought them both like 4 years ago.
Oh, right.
I bought them in a Steam sale in a franchise pack, and then I played them for a couple hours each, and then didn't touch them. So now that I'm playing them again, may as well. And I've also picked up, get this, the starter edition of Diablo 3.
What's the starter edition?
It's the version that they'll let you play for free.
Oh, right.
So it's got like a level cap and stuff like that.
When you get it in the expansion, we should definitely play through a season or something. I don't know when the next season is.
It's going to be almost definitely, but there's a few other games in this genre that I want to clear out of my library first.
Yep, sure.
So Torchlight 2, Grim Dawn, What else is there? The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing. I have 3 of those to clear through. So I got the final cut as part of one of my Humble weeklies, monthlies, which is actually coming out on Friday. So I'm looking forward to unboxing whatever that is too.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's gonna do it for me. There might be some more Bloodborne, there might be some more GTA, Mafia. So with that, Mark, you exist on the internet in places that are not this. So here's my question: where can we find you, on the internet?
On Twitter, I'm at Honest Universe, and I blog a bit as well, although not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. What about you?
Oh, excuse me.
You're right.
Yep. You can find me on the internet at CockatielCutie. And I exist on the internet, and I do a lot of video games and kind of just weird personal stuff at the same time too. You can find me on my blog, which is there's a lot of pictures of birds that I queue up from various people. That's mostly my blog. It's a curated feed of birds 4 times a day. You can find it at bird.school. You can also find me on Twitch, where I've started doing weekly Torchlight streams. Let's see how that goes for me. And that's just twitch.tv/cockatielcutie. The stream series I'm doing is just called Torchlight Tuesdays, and it is airing 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time on Tuesday.
Nice.
Now for the show. You can find everybody. You can find both of us. Cockatiel. What? No. What the fuck am I talking about? You can't find us both. Cockatiel Cutie. That's dumb and bad. No. You can find us at PauseCast Show. That's
on Twitter.
Yeah, on Twitter. That's basically where you can find us for everything, though. PauseCast Show Twitter. PauseCast Show SoundCloud, Pocket Casts, pca.st/pausecast. You can find us on iTunes, bit.ly pausecast/iTunes. If you are listening on iTunes, please give us a rating or review. It helps us, spread the show a little bit. And just share the show as well. If you want to do it by sharing it on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever. Anything you can do to help get people listening would be awesome. We would really appreciate it. Did I miss anything? Facebook group. Facebook.com/groups/podcast show. Our music as well, that we use in the intro and outro, is John Hughes by the band Anamanaguchi. I would highly recommend checking out their album Endless Fantasy. It's very good. Cool. That's it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of PauseCast, and we will see you again next week.
Bye.